Okay, good morning everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to week 3 of the built environment. This week we are back on our normal schedule of 8 a.m. on a Thursday, right? Thursday. Please mark your attendance by scanning the QR code in front of you. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna do a little bit of last minute or last second preps. Excuse me. Okay, for those of you who've joined us, please mark your attendance as quickly as you can. Before I'd like to start our session now. I'll make sure to show to display the QR code again for those of you who were late to join. Remind me if I before I forget though. Okay. This week we are going to pick up. We're going to pick up where we left off. Last week we talked about products, and now we are, and this week it's a larger scale product, or a larger scale group of products which make up the interior. I'd like to show you this again just to remind you that why we call it the built environment, and rather than any other terms. And right now we are at the second level closest to the bottom. Interiors include the near environment, and in a way it is a three-dimensional enclosed space. Whenever we talk about an interior, we're always, well, maybe not always, but oftentimes we think about the indoor spaces, our living room, dining room, bedroom, or maybe the interiors of the classroom, the interiors of commercial places, malls, shopping centers, and so on. So to define interiors, interiors generally consist of they generally consist of products, and interiors constitute the second building block of the built environment. As I mentioned, they are commonly referred to as three-dimensional enclosed spaces, and also as the near environment or the immediate environment around us. Sometimes you can be outdoor, but you can create an imaginary interior space, your safe space, and that sort of thing, referring to the immediate immediate area surrounding you. Maybe maybe a meter radius around you. That's your safe space, perhaps. Now, interiors are an environment created using combination of products to satisfy human needs and embody human values. And the ability to design effective interiors has increased our comfort, our efficiency, and our enjoyment. Now, some spaces fulfill individual and family needs for privacy. Others are more public and they foster and reinforce social interaction. Um, they foster and perhaps encourage cultural activities or cultural interaction, commercial interaction. Interiors protect people from external factors and disturbances such as climate, noise, and intruding public eyes, provided that no, the last one, intruding public eyes, provided that the interior is a privately owned interior. Otherwise, if the interior is meant to reinforce social interaction, then I guess intruding public eyes um, are something that we can't really avoid. Some specialized spaces, think of ships, aircrafts, or space exploration vehicles. Um, their interiors are designed to maximize efficiency within a very limited, within the limited confines of their particular spatial dimensions. Now, if you think of an aircraft and the aircraft interior, um, the coach or the economy class interior is designed in a way to maximize not well to maximize efficiency, of course, to make sure that you can put as many people as possible inside the aircraft, whereas the first class or the business class lounge are more spacious and are oriented more towards comfort rather than efficiency. If you think of the International Space Station, their their interiors consist the interiors of the International Space Station consist of very tight spaces um, where scientists and or astronauts need to navigate um, as they as they conduct their daily chores, their daily activities. Like the other seven components of the built environment, interiors can be understood as an essential part of the content component context continuum. Products are designed together. Products are designed together to form interiors, and interiors are integrated into a structural enclosure. And the resultant artifact is known as an interior space. Now, interiors as cultural blueprints of human existence. Now, this statement is debatable, but I think we spend a large portion of our life indoors. Um, no, not the cultural blueprints of human existence bit that is debatable, but what is debatable is what I just said earlier. What I just said earlier, that I think we spend a huge portion of our life indoors, um, at home, in class, and in leisure spaces. God, I miss going to the theaters. So, if you think about it, as children, as much younger children, the home embraces us, acting as a surrogate parent, keeping us safe and secure. Our bedrooms become our private shrines of identification as we search for self, throughout our formative adolescent years. So think about your think about the teenage years, which some of you may still be in. Um, you're searching for your identity, you're searching for your voice, and so your bedroom perhaps is your bedroom perhaps reflects that. You might plaster your walls with you might plaster your walls with your pop rock whatever idols, with pictures of their of your idols, or you might plaster your walls with four wheels, two wheels, and other attributes that contribute to shaping your identity. Um, Educational institutions then absorb close to maybe a third of our day from the ages of, since we're about 5 until we're about 21, and then with the majority of us selecting careers that are housed in an interior space. So you spend your educational you spend a great amount of time throughout your school years in classrooms. We're in virtual classrooms, but this virtual classroom happens to take place. I don't know. Some of you may be in a cafe. I'm at home. Some of you might be at home at your boarding house, perhaps. Boarding house, kosan. And then when you graduate, you would then go on to selecting careers according to your qualifications, according to your interests. You pursue careers according to your interests, your passion. But I have a good guess that that job of yours will take place in an interior space as well. Yeah, we've also focused our entertainment inside movie theaters, shopping malls, some sports arenas perhaps, and our own homes. Now, speaking of the home, initially with the advent of television and increasingly with the development of the computer technology, streaming services, we don't even need to go to the movie theaters to enjoy a good movie. Consequently, it is very important to understand the forces that help that shape these spaces and their impact on the human experience. Now, when we speak of the human experience, we are in fact discussing quality. Now, the search for quality is therefore a major focus of this discussion. Sorry. Now, generally, quality depends on whether or not the interior sustains human life, physically, psychologically, and physiologically, by being aesthetically pleasing and supporting certain functions. In interior design, as far as my education in architectural design afforded me, I think there we need to meet the criterias of being aesthetically pleasing and supporting certain functions. These two criteria should be met to maximize the quality and the usefulness of the space by employing methods from both art, aesthetics, and science, function, ergonomics, accessibility, and technological advances. Several factors shape the environment surrounding us today, surrounding us right now, maybe. And there are three categories of factors that influence our design decisions. First is the social issues, and then technological advancements, and then environmental connections. Um, with with social issues, we some of us may prefer our interior spaces to be fully segregate us from other people, from the public eye. Um, I know I don't feel too comfortable if other people can see inside can see inside the interiors of my house from the street. Um, but I also don't like it when I also don't like it if the interiors are so enclosed in that I don't have a connection. I don't have a connection, or I lose connection with the outside um, through natural lighting, through natural ventilation, for example. So, on the one hand, I think any surfaces of my house that come in contact with the public eye, with the streets, then I try to I try to shield the windows and the doors that that are the interfaces with the public. Shield them as much as possible, but for any surfaces, any walls that do not come in contact with the public road, then I tend to open them up as much as I can to let natural light in, so that air would flow. So that air would flow nicely inside. I don't need excessive air conditioning. I don't need to turn on my lights during the day. Um, in fact, I think I only turn on my lights just before sundown, um, just to illustrate how many windows I have. Technological advancement, of course, is another factor that I almost forgot to mention. Um, a long time ago, if we were to build large interior spaces, we would need to put pillars. We would need to put pillars inside the interior space, or the interior space would have pillars to support the ceiling and ultimately the roof, because we didn't know how to build large spans of large spans or large enclosures without having structures in the middle. Now, with the with the advancement of construction technology, the discovery of space frames and other construction and other novel construction methods have allowed us to build halls needing without needing the without needing excessive pillars inside, and pillars and or other obstructions inside inside the hall itself. Now, the mere fact that we have so many different types of interior space is an acknowledgement that human social needs are driving the production of the built environment. Interiors are a crucial part of the infrastructure by which we define ourselves and interact with others. Social institutions are manifested clearly in the built environment and carry a great deal of meaning for the people they represent. The most common social institutions are domestic, commercial, political, and religious. Religious and political structures are public, while the home is private and intimate. In the home, social customs, etiquette, and life's basic necessities specifically drive interiors. If we go back to a long time ago, um, think of fire. Fire is a major component of life for all human cultures. Now, in early dwellings, a hearth, brazier, or a fire pit was centrally located in the home for heat, cooking, and light source. Now, this necessity impacted the space planning as well as the furniture design and furniture arrangement. In ancient times, the space containing the fire was centrally located with all the other rooms radially disposed. As cultures harnessed fire, space plans were freed from this composition as heat and light were provided for each room. Eventually, as the fireplace was introduced and moved to the wall, the center of the room was free for other functions. An interesting response to this change was reflected in furniture. Furniture became more and more lightweight and more easier to transport from room to room um, as the shift as the shift of the source of heat um, occurs. Now, with mobile furnitures, spaces can now be configured according to the required function, allowing for multifunctional rooms. You can get rid of the furniture to create halls. You can arrange the furniture in such a way for class, for conferences, or you can rearrange the furniture in such a way for group work, and so on. Now, another one example of a radically changed social issue is privacy. Now, this is quite a concern considering that the hallway or corridor as a clearly defined and separate entity does not really appear until the 19th century in Victorian England. Previously, people moved directly from space to space, and personal privacy was a considerable challenge. Medieval England and France used tester beds that could be enclosed completely in heavy textiles, providing protection from cold drafts and separation from the flow of traffic. However, today we see a move towards more open concept home layouts that provide clearer sightlines um, in private dwelling. So, and we also arrange, privacy. Uh, when we design a house, we do segregate the house into at least three categories of function, or three categories of privacy. The public area, where you would have where you would have guests, or if you have colleagues, where you would entertain your colleagues. That's your public area, or any other things. And then you would have a semi-private or semi-public areas where perhaps you have close friends. You would entertain your close friends, your family, extended family there. And then you have the private space. Think of the bedrooms, bathrooms, and perhaps other functions of the house. Some people like to put the kitchen in the semi-private area, adjacent to the dining room. But previously the kitchen was tucked away. Nobody would see the kitchen because perhaps it's a clutter, it's a mess. But nowadays, I think I'm increasingly seeing more and more people incorporating the kitchen and incorporating the kitchen into the dining room. So we have a more continuous, more open concept, and even the dining room itself connects to the living area without any walls. So you have more a much clearer sight line. And this is in private dwellings and not in not in public establishments. Now, in in 17th century France, interiors aided in stratifying society. Both the Monsieur and Madame of the house had their own apartments, a series of rooms, including an antechamber, a chamber or a bedroom, and cabinet or a closet. A single salon connected the two apartments. During social gatherings, guests' status relative to the host or hostess was clearly indicated by which rooms they were permitted to enter. I think it's the same. We don't really stratify our guests, but we do put our guests or our connections, other people around us in perhaps circles. So this is my inner circle of friends, family. This is my second. Or outer circle, and this is my even a much and outside of the outer circle, there are a bunch of people that I sort of know, but I don't. I sort of know, but I don't know them. If that makes any sense. Some guests may be allowed to stay in the salon, while the host or hostess permitted others to enter the antechamber or the bedchamber. Only the most intimate friends entered the cabinet. Now, it is interesting to note that the term cabinet is still used today to signify one's close associates, such as the president's cabinet. We also use that in our political talk as well, in our own language, cabinet. Now, this is what I was trying to illustrate with the pillars and stuff. So interiors prior to the 20th century had quite a few similarities. The most significant is the fact that the shape of interior space was a byproduct of architectural design. The design of the exterior superseded the design of the interior. Not until the 19th century did a tradition emerge whereby interior spaces began to define the structure. So designing inside out rather than outside in. Fun fact, I can never design from the outside in for some reason. Everything, all the designs that I've come up with, or most, are usually geared or oriented towards the interior. So I think about the interior first, how people would flow through the spaces before then adjusting the exterior facade. Now, as a consequence of this interior to exterior approach, construction methods played a considerable role in defining the character of the spaces enclosed. Now, ancient stone buildings like this cathedral, like Gothic churches, ancient stone buildings are usually grand in scale, but they have a very limited interior due to the use of stone in their construction. Now, stones have very poor tensile strength. The beams stone beams can't span large distances. As a result, some large rooms are then filled with columns and pillars. The interior then becomes a bit uncomfortable for some people because it gives this maze-like effect. Usually in spaces like that, you can wander rather aimlessly through the space because of the number of pillars. Only the clearly articulated central circulatory path provides an orientation. Now, if you think about these old churches, I'm fascinated by these old churches, by old churches in general. The windows are situated up here, way above the human head or the human eye line, simply because the designers back then, when they designed churches, they think that any light that comes into the prayer hall is heavenly light, is a divine light. So, and most of the time, humans spend most of their life in the darkness. That's why when we draw an imaginary line, this area right here is rather dark. It's a lot darker in contrast to the roof and ceiling. It's because of that, and it's to show or to symbolize the humanly struggles. Or the human struggles to achieve enlightenment, or to touch the heavenly light, the divine light. As new materials and technologies were introduced, spatial limitations were overcome. These two spaces may have the exact same span, same width, but with different construction techniques. One is used with different construction techniques and different materials, of course. The arc afforded builders the ability to span much larger distances uninterrupted by structure. Such spaces have other unique effects on humans. What do you think people do when they enter a dome space like this? Most people, and I would say closer to 80 to 90% of people who walk into a dome space like this, into an arced space like this, the first thing they would do when they go in is they would look up. Then they would walk towards the center of the room, and it's just one of those. It's unexplainable why, but people tend to do that. Most people tend to do that. They walk into a dome space, they look up, wow, and then somehow, as if drawn to the center of the room, they would then walk, make their way towards the center, and then look up again, trying to find where that center point is. Now, you might think that they're just responding to the height, but in reality, they're responding to the nature of a spherical shape. People are innately aware that a circle or a part of a circle has a clearly defined center. There's a center point in there somewhere, whether it's articulated by some form of ornamentation or not. As a result, a dome space draws people to the center, directs their attention upwards, and causes them to pause. Now, on the other hand, a rectangular vaulted space, which is composed of a series of arcs, like this one here, composed of a series of arcs aligned on a horizontal axis, makes people move quickly through the space because the length of the space is typically greater than the height. Uh, think of airports. A lot of airports use they are wider than they are tall, and some of them use this. Some of them use this horizontally arranged arcs, and somehow that helps people move along, or that drives people to move along, other than the fact that they're trying to catch a flight. But I think in general, people move slightly quicker in airports than they do in other places. Now, the human's relationship with nature is clearly visible in the design of interiors. Now, the most common and easily recognizable tribute to nature in interiors of the high style tradition can be found in the use of daylighting, views, and ornamentation or decoration, or lack thereof. I don't like ornaments and decoration. Countless cultures have recreated their surrounding environment in moldings, paintings, frescoes, and numerous other media. So you see the little carvings on the head of a chair, and perhaps crown moldings. When you look at a wall, and the point where it meets the ceiling, there's an ornament there to celebrate the meeting of the wall and ceiling. Those are called moldings. I don't like those. But the connection between humans and nature is often obstructed by the limits of technology and construction, creating a conflict between interiors, buildings, and exterior spaces. For the wealthy, a garden was incorporated into the design of the home and acted as an oasis or courtyard in an otherwise masonry or concrete jungle. Courtyard dwellings are also an effective design response to hot climates. Ideally, because we live in a hot climate, ideally we would have a courtyard to help mediate and to help with air circulation and such. Virtually everyone appreciates a well-placed opening that leads to an extraordinary view. Especially of nature. However, most of the times those views are often unavailable. There is an inherent conflict between the human need for shelter and the need to be connected to the surrounding natural context. Now, as a result, examples of solutions that demonstrate a capacity to accommodate both needs are very rare. Nowadays, we can better connect the exterior and interior spaces thanks to technological advances that allow us to create large openings that provide us with ample natural lighting and increased ventilation. Honestly, with a window this big, I can guarantee you that you wouldn't need to turn the lights on until very, very late in the day, and that would help with electrical bills as well. It's just awesome. Huge windows are awesome. Sorry. Now, the near environment. I hinted at something similar to the near environment, or something like a private space or personal space. Now, the idea of the near environment is based on the concepts of shelter and enclosure, focusing on the interior spaces of the building. These are the spaces where we live and work. Designers strive to understand people by exploring the relationships between human nature and the near environment. Now, their goal is to design spaces that are supportive functionally as well as aesthetically. The designer plans not only for the physical comfort, but also for the psychological comfort of people in these spaces. Now, human nature and the near environment are core concerns for interior designers and other design disciplines that focus on human scale and human performance in the built environment. All designers strive to understand clients and users by exploring in depth the relationship between human nature, interior spaces, and the near environment. Now, key to this understanding is the recognition that the interior environment has a strong impact on the personal nature of the built environment, whether urban or rural. Allow me to illustrate. Now, the near environment is the space that surrounds the human body and is separated from the natural environment by the walls of buildings. These are the spaces where people live and work. The built environment profoundly affects attitudes and behavior. The designer has to plan not only for the physical comfort of the user, but also for the psychological comfort. Now, many components in the near environment impact human behavior. Of particular significance are the products that give character and definition to interior spaces. Variables like the color and texture of fabrics and materials, or the scale and proportion of furniture, all play a big role in the communication exchange between the built environment and the people who inhabit it. Supportive places supportive spaces make people of all ages feel more comfortable. Designers cultivate an awareness of the key issues and objectives upon which support design should be based. One of these key issues and objectives is the concept of personal space. Edward Hall, an anthropologist, conducted one of the earliest studies of how people relate socially and psychologically to the physical space around them. And Hall developed the concept of proxemics, the study of the distance individuals maintain between each other in group or social interaction. Hall's concept is based on the idea that every individual is surrounded by a perceptual bubble of what he called personal space. That is a space that separates an individual from the rest of the world. Now, when a stranger infringes upon that space, a sense of discomfort follows. Hall noticed that people tolerate different levels of closeness depending upon the activity in which they are engaged, and also depending perhaps on how close they are emotionally to other people. He imagined that personal space is like a bubble around a person that changes shape as the activities and circumstances change. For example, this is about 40, 45, 50 centimeters. I would say that anyone standing less than 40 centimeters ahead of me would either have to be my children, my wife, or else I would consider them really, really strange. Weird. Why are you standing so close to me? That sort of thing. Now, Hall determined that when people interact socially, they typically function within 4 zones of space: the intimate zone, the personal distance, maybe with your friends, colleagues. The social distance of the social zone, and then the public zone. Various cultures may have the same zone, but in different sizes. Each of these zones has a near phase and a far phase. Hall maintains that people will select a particular zone for social interaction depending upon relationships, status, and the nature of the activity involved. I'm sure none of you would like to stand less than this distance in front of me, and I would feel uncomfortable the same way standing in front of you. Interior design. Interior design is a professional career. Um, it is a it is a profession that addresses the issues and challenges created by interactions between people and the interior spaces in which they experience life. But the goal of interior designers is to create interior environments that successfully address the functional, psychological, aesthetic, and cultural needs of people. As an emerging discipline, interior design has faced many, many challenges. Today's interior designer is a skilled professional who, through collaboration with practitioners in other allied disciplines, think of interior designers and heating, ventilating, and air conditioning engineers, interior designers, and electrical engineers who take care of and mechanical electrical engineers who install the mechanicals and who are in charge of the mechanical and electrical installations. So those are allied disciplines, and they collaborate to create interior spaces that optimize the art and science of design by maximizing these relationships among humans, environments, and technological advances. An interior space, whether it is an office, a restaurant, a home, or a large auditorium, is by its very nature a personal space, in the sense that each space is interpreted differently depending on the individual's experiences, memories, and capabilities. So the designers are challenged to create interior environments that are sensitive to the dynamic relationship between people, experience, and space. Now, several social and cultural concepts have been developed to explain how and why people behave the way they do. One of the most frequently cited and comprehensive models used to explain human behavior is known as the hierarchy of needs, postulated by the psychologist Abraham Maslow. Maslow believed that human needs are dynamic and can be arrayed in an ascending hierarchy from simple and most basic to very complex needs. In other words, when one set of needs is satisfied, another set emerges to replace it. Look here, right at the very bottom, the very basis of this pyramid is our physiological needs: breathing, food, water, sleep, homeostasis, excretion, and so on. Those are very basic physiological needs. Once all of these has been fulfilled, we need our needs elevate. We need security of body, security of employment, of resources, of morality, of the family, of security of health, of property, security and safety of property. And then once that is fulfilled, then we need to feel loved. We need to feel a sense of belonging, friendship, family, and other forms of intimacy. Then up another notch, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respected by others. And then right at the very top here is self-actualization, morality, creativity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, and acceptance of facts. Of course, our it's not as straightforward as that. Where am I on this? Where am I on this pyramid? Sometimes down here, sometimes all the way up here. Same with you. Where are you on this pyramid at the moment? Maybe somewhere here, or maybe you're all the way up here already. I think it really depends. It really depends on the situation. It really depends on the timing. It really depends on age and other demographic factors, perhaps. Now, the importance of this hierarchy to interior design provides the designer with insights into the nature of human beings and how that knowledge translates into user satisfaction. issues such as territoriality, comfort, both physical and psychological comfort, privacy and function are easy to understand if Maslow's hierarchy is applied during the design process. This allows for better designer and client relationship. For example, if you were to design, say you manage a school with a lack of classrooms, then I guess your first priority is to provide an enclosed classroom so that you can provide you can fulfill the classrooms of the students and the teachers physiological and safety needs. Once that classroom is done, once that classroom is built, and once the teaching and learning activities take place, then the teacher and students will perhaps use that space to show their sense of belonging to the class by decorating the class with their work and other elements that enhance or that support learning and teaching. And then for some students, perhaps the classroom then becomes a space of esteem, where they can display their best work. It's a place where they can display their best work. Perhaps the part of the class becomes a gallery dedicated to the students' best works and such. So it gives them a space of esteem, so where they can appreciate the work of others, and others can and likewise other students can appreciate their work. And then that classroom becomes a space of self-actualization, where students and teachers can explore their creativity, explore their morality, problem-solving skills, and others. Now, last week I introduced the questions a designer must ask to themselves prior to putting their thoughts onto paper, or even before accepting a job offer. These questions apply to any level of the built environment components. What are the environmental impacts of the interior? Does it affect resources? How much resources am I extracting? Am I using too much exotic materials? Certain types of wood, maybe certain types of stones like granite, or am I better off using artificial wood, artificial stone, and so on? Does it produce? But these artificial products, how much waste do they produce? Is it safe? What's the impact on human health? All the same questions. But this is the designer's responsibility. What about us as consumers, us as clients? Well, we do have what is called the consumer's choice. And there are many things that you can do to complement the designer's responsibility as a consumer. One of those things is to perhaps take part in the minimalism movement, where you try to pursue a purpose-driven life. And the minimalism movement is simply a movement to get rid of yourself of life's excess in favor of focusing on what's important, so you can find happiness, fulfillment, and freedom. It's basically throwing away your stuff that you don't need, stuff that you don't use anymore, stuff that you bought, or stuff that were given to you out of stuff that you bought out of curiosity, out of spite, or unwanted gifts and all of that. Um, but I guess I guess you can reflect on the things that you have as a consumer. Um, use Maslow's hierarchy of needs to sort of weigh or consider the things that you have. Do I need this? Is it necessary for self-actualization, esteem, or is it purely physiological, or do these things that I have but at the moment are absolutely useless, and therefore I can get rid of them so that other people may have better use for them, that sort of thing. So as a consumer, as a user, we are not entirely at the mercy of designers. No, we also have a choice. Um, and I think we can also ask ourselves the same question: whether if we choose to finish this wall in this sort of material, what are the environmental impacts and so on? If we choose a wallpaper, is the wallpaper adhesive safe? I know back in Victorian England, people like to paint their interiors, or people like a certain green wallpaper, but to be able to produce that green hue, that green color, um, the manufacturers have to line the wallpapers with lead, and lead is poisonous. So, yeah, is it safe? I think nowadays, if we use materials such as now we all know now we know that asbestos, for example, asbestos used to be a fantastic building material, but nowadays we avoid asbestos as best we could because its tiny fibers are cancerous. They can lodge into your you can inhale them, and your body will not be able to expel them, and they will cause a whole horde of issues. So that's asbestos. Um, Impact on human health and so on. So if you're interested in that minimalist movement thing, you can Google Milburn's book, Minimalist Rulebook. It's freely available, and I think it's a fantastic book to reflect on the things that you have, and to reflect on when you want to buy other things, or before you decide to buy new things and such. And that is all. That is all I have for today. Um, and before I forget, while I wait for any comments or any questions that may arise, um, please make sure to mark your attendance. Right. While we're waiting for people to do that, does anyone have any questions or comments? Right. Then I think I can safely say that we can end today's session. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing everyone here again, same day, same time, next week. Have a great day, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.